Today on Voices of the Chesapeake Bay, brought to you by the Boatyard Bar and Grill, we're talking an incredible Carr's and Sparrows Beach celebration weekend extravaganza on Friday, February 1st and Saturday, February 2nd. Surf and turf on the Chesapeake Bay. On Friday night, a dance party from 7 to midnight with the Clones of Funk and Scotty Preston. And that's going to be a big time at the Cape St. Clair Community Clubhouse in Annapolis. And then on Saturday night, it's going to be an indoor picnic from 2 to 6 in the afternoon with Karen Somerville and her band. A special tribute to the women of the beach, including tunes from folks like Billie Holiday and Nancy Wilson, Ella Fitzgerald, Sarah Vaughan, and more. Karen Somerville is incredible, and you won't want to miss either of these events. Once again, it's a Friday night dance party with the Clones of Funk at the Cape St. Clair Clubhouse, and Saturday an indoor picnic at the Wiley H. Bates Legacy Center, and that's from 2 to 6 on Saturday night. You can get your tickets online from Chesapeake Children's Museum and the Wiley H. Bates Legacy Center. Contact Blacks of the Chesapeake. Vince Leggett, the founder of Blacks of the Chesapeake, is our guest on Voices of the Chesapeake Bay as we talk Carr's and Sparrows Beach.
The Blacks of the Chesapeake started their program in 2007. We had worked with the Comcast organization and then started a Carr's Beach education and preservation program. So there have been different people that have done things trying to preserve the legacy of the beaches. Deal Island was a place over there called Henry's Beach that was in Princess Anne, Somerset County. Deal Island, and that was a hotbed of African-American watermen. Also Graysonville or Kent Island, they had a club called the Weeping Willow right in Graysonville. And then in Bats Neck, this is another community over near Chester, Maryland. They had a club called Ellsworth, and they had a beach called Chesapeake, where the ferries would actually come from Chesapeake to Annapolis across the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. So wherever you had a speck of sand, people found ways to enjoy the waterways, enjoy that life, and particularly during the period of restrictions. Chestertown had a real popular nightclub there, and there were different efforts to try to restore and revive that heritage, and then they would go up through Delaware on into Pennsylvania and New York. There were a lot of places, and again, it was during the period of segregation, and people still needed outlets to enjoy themselves. And so again, it's kind of the Underground Railroad of music. They had a little bit of radio, but even before radio became popular, posters. There are a lot of famous globe posters around here in the Mid-Atlantic region, and they all made them look like boxing cards. They were very colorful. They would be tacked on telephone poles and in laundromats and in bars and in restaurants, letting you know who was coming this weekend or who was coming over the next couple of weeks. Globe posters, and even today you would Google them on the internet, and some of these posters are selling for $300, $600, $1,200. So it's a whole industry around that. So Hoppy Adams, he was an MC and he was a producer. He was at Carr's Beach, and they had a program called Bandstand on the Beach Sunday afternoons at 3 o'clock. They were talking about this pavilion at this time in the 50s and 60s could accommodate 6,000 to 8,000 people. And in some of these shows, they would have 30,000 people trying to get in, and I've read newspaper articles on how Route 2 and all these roads were backed up for miles, and one end of Annapolis to the other. They had a train station from Baltimore. They had a ferry boat that came down from Baltimore. They had a ferry boat that came over from the Eastern Shore to Claiborne. That was the boat. And then they had another one called the Smoking Joe that would cross from the Eastern Shore out of Love Point. Smoking Joe. Carr's and Sparrows Beach would be the old Bay Ridge Avenue, Forest Drive extended, going down to what's currently Bay Ridge. You would come down that way, and one of the routes kind of came through the Eastport area. Another one came down off of Forest Drive and then snaked around to Forest Drive Avenue for those in the Annapolis area. It would be heading toward the Bay Ridge area. You would turn left between Giant Supermarket and what's currently 7-Eleven and would go back on Edgewood Road. and it would snake back to the waterways, and that's where they had Carr's and Sparrows Beach. They had other clubs along the way, the Clover's Inn, and then they had the Dewdrop Inn and Cuffy's, and so they were satellite businesses that got started around this whole area. So it was really a tremendous economic impact. Today, Carr's Beach and Sparrows had been sold, and there's the Chesapeake Harbor condominiums, and there's a restaurant back there called Sam's. And I guess a few years ago we had Larry Griffin and others that led a program that had a Carr's Beach reunion right at Sam's restaurant. So there have been a number of different efforts over the years. Carr's and Sparrows Beach, they were right next to each other. You had Sparrows Beach, and then you had Carr's Beach, and both of them started in the 1930s. As the record goes, and from talking with people, even talking with members of the Carr's and Sparrows families, that the Sparrows Beach was more family-oriented. They had cottages and hotels, and they had log cabins there, and people would rent the cottages, they would rent the hotels there, a picnic area, bathing, fishing, boat rentals, bathing suit rentals. They were a lot more family oriented. They had day camps and summer camps and church groups. We have some film footage from Cardwell Shaheed McMillan from the Mutual Aid Society in Baltimore from like the 40s up into the 60s, just seeing tens and hundreds of buses over this period coming down to the beaches. Carr's Beach had more of the entertainment at this time, where they had eventually this pavilion that could accommodate 7,000 people. And so they became more known for the music packages that they would bring in. But I've had conversations with members of the Sparrows family, and one thing they emphasize is that they also had big stars that also came to Sparrows, where I've seen these globe posters advertising Ray Charles performing at Sparrows Beach, Sam Cooke performing at Sparrows Beach. So both groups had stars, but Carr's Beach and with the Sunday bandstands with Hoppy Adams and those, they could just accommodate larger shows. I've had conversations with Roland Brown and Albert Brown and others. These were some of the originals, Reggie Harris. A lot of these guys came out of Wally H. Bates High School in Annapolis, and so they were musicians, and they eventually, the Van Dykes grew to be one of the house bands at Carr's and Sparrows Beach, and they did have a hit that reached up to number 11 on the charts on WWIN radio and some of the charts out of Baltimore called Stupidity. And they actually went on the Buddy Dean show, and the Buddy Dean show was a televised dance show, American Idol, American Bandstand, and it was broadcast out of Baltimore. The Van Dykes performed there, and during the 50s, 60s, and early part of the 70s, they were really one of the hottest bands in the DMV, in the Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, D.C. area. And a lot of it was family oriented, but Roland Brown, Dale Pusher, was a white guy. I read a lot of his materials, and he had once played with Elvis Presley. So they was really some of the top musicians. Michael Brown was another one, John Bryan on the trombone, and it was just a whole host of guys. And many times people like Solomon Burke, I mean, they really kind of tagged on to some of the big stars during that time and would actually go on the road with them when they were in the DMV and not just at Carr's and Sparrows Beach. But that's a real rich history. And then they had another local group called the Pipe Dreamers, and they would play music at the beaches as well. So a lot of them really were some of the beginning performers before the big stars came on, but they were local people, and there's always been a connection between these beaches and Wally H. Bates High School. Many of the students worked at the beaches during the summer. Many of the teachers worked at the beaches during the summer. I've talked to people like Philip Brown. I mean, he wrote the book The Other Annapolis, lived on and run on the Bay Area. And during this period of segregation where the colored teachers weren't paid as much as the white teachers, they tried to find ways to supplement their incomes. And so you had guys with master's degrees running concessions at the ticket booth, doing things of this nature. So it really just shows the economic impact.
That's Vince Leggett on 103.1 WRNR. He's our guest from Blacks of the Chesapeake. Vince talking about the legacy of Carr's and Sparrows beaches right here in Annapolis. And they'll be celebrating those on Friday, February 1st, Saturday, February 2nd, with a dance party Friday with the Clones of Funk and an indoor picnic on Saturday. Get your tickets online from the Chesapeake Children's Museum and the Wiley H. Bates Legacy Center. And I hope to see you there. We'll hear more from Vince a little bit later on in the show here on the Sunday Brunch on 103.1 WRNR.